Why is McKinsey & Company such a successful company? I want to dive into that question in this video and share with you my experience working at the company and why I think it has been so successful over almost 100 years. You can't talk about McKinsey & Company today without mentioning some of the scandals that they've been involved in, but this is not the point of this video. If you want to explore some of the issues I see with the consulting industry, you can check out my video, The Dark Side of Consulting. I spent about 10 years in the consulting industry, working for companies like McKinsey, my first company, and Boston Consulting Group, and a couple of other smaller boutique companies. While working at McKinsey and after leaving the company and comparing it to experiences I had at other companies, I knew something was different about McKinsey. It took me a while to come up with this holistic model of why McKinsey is so successful. I think McKinsey's ability to be successful over the long run really comes down to three things. One is that it's been able to consistently attract curious and driven people. Two, it builds trust through a values-based culture, and I'll explain what that means, and it's not just words. And three, it focuses on the long term, obsessively at times. So these three elements act in tandem. They form a virtuous cycle of three things working together, and the combination of them is powerful because if you combine the right people with the right culture with a long-term orientation, you get these compounding effects where you keep attracting talented people, and this is McKinsey's virtuous cycle. Let's dive into the first one: attract driven and curious people. Now, this one seems obvious. Every company claims to want to hire the best, but in practice they really don't attract the best people, and it's becoming harder and harder to attract some of the most talented people in today's economy. The thing that McKinsey does is they don't stop at hiring. They see it as an ongoing process. Like they say in their mission statement, they want to create an unrivaled environment for exceptional people. This means you don't just try to hire them and get them in the door. It means you need to keep cultivating them, keep making sure you have an environment where people can grow and learn new things. And this was backed up in my experience there. You have trainings in the first week, but you also have trainings 3 months in. And every single interaction in the firm has a dose of feedback and coaching as part of it that makes it really, really exciting to be there. The third thing, which most companies really struggle to do, is that McKinsey fires people. Let's just put it bluntly, they get rid of people that don't meet their expectations. Now, are they going to get it wrong sometimes? Sure, I'm sure they've fired people that they probably shouldn't have. But the way they approach it is not that you failed as a person, it's that this is probably not the best environment for you. And the reality is consulting is not a great environment for most people, including the people working there. They look at it as, okay, where are the other opportunities that you can thrive? Let's try to make sense of what you're good at, and let's try to find other companies. And often they let people use the resources of the firm, and it was not seen as a bad thing to leave the firm. The second thing that makes McKinsey stand out is that they had a culture that was strong and true. Now, the culture is very strong. It's a culture that wants you to act in certain ways. But this was part of Bauer's ethos of the firm. He wanted consultants to look at themselves as professionals. He didn't look at consulting as a business. He saw it as a profession, and he felt in order to build a lasting firm, you had to have a firm with high standards. He says, convinced that behavior and conduct are every bit as important as skills and expertise, I sought to build the firm into an enduring, values-based institution. Now, what does that mean, values-based institution? Almost every company has values now, but do they live them? The reality is most companies just have them for the plaque. They say, we respect our customer, but what does that actually mean? At McKinsey, you learn through stories. One, you were given a copy of Bauer's perspective on McKinsey, which was essentially how he thought about the firm and his plans for making it a lasting firm. Two, you were given stories. You were shown videos of Bauer and early founders of the firm and early influences like Barbara Minto, who invented the pyramid principle. And you were told stories about them. But the second part that made the stories powerful is that many of the stories were true. I have 2 examples of them being true. One was the value McKinsey says of being hierarchical and inclusive. And I got a dose of this really quickly. I was on a call in my first couple of weeks of starting my job as a research analyst, and partners started asking for my opinion. And it gave me a clear signal that it doesn't matter that you're new and you have a very low rank. We need your opinion, and I want you to challenge me and offer your perspective. And this relates to the second one, which was uphold the obligation to dissent. And this was to enable a true marketplace of ideas. Every idea you brought up was challenged. You expected it to be challenged. If it wasn't challenged, something was off. And this, combined with the non-hierarchical culture of the company, really played out over and over and over again. I worked with partners who would expect me, Paul, what do you think? Push back, try to find the holes in my thinking here. And so you'd always be prepared to say, okay, what is another way to look at this? What's another perspective? And the combination of these stories backed up by actual truth, like I was connecting it to things that were happening around me, really made me want to be part of that and continue to uphold those traditions and values. The third thing that made McKinsey very unique was that, and this is the only company I've ever known that's done something like this, they shut down the entire firm across the world for one single day, typically in June, and they have a values day. This is a day in which they actually just sit down and focus on some of the values. They share some of these stories. They bring back alumni to talk about what it was like being at the firm, and they try to reflect on things that they haven't done well and could do better, especially at a local level. And this type of introspection is really powerful for continuing to make sure that the culture is true and not BSing people. Because that is what made this second component really powerful, is that it survived this BS filter. You can't hire smart people and then tell them you have all these values and then the values not actually be true. People are going to call BS on them. So this is one of the really key things that makes this virtuous cycle click for McKinsey, is that the values built trust and resonated with people that they said, okay, checks out, this is real. And the last part of the virtuous cycle is their long-term orientation. And this is very explicit in their values. They want to help clients implement lasting change, and their purpose is about enduring impact on the world. I joined McKinsey from GE, where at GE, everyone was obsessed with the fiscal week and the quarter. And at McKinsey, no one talked about the financials. In fact, they're not actually even shared with most employees. And this enables people to make bets and make decisions and not get caught up in, okay, what are the numbers this quarter? Of course, the senior partners know them, but they make sure that they don't really dominate how people are making decisions. Consulting firms do projects on 3 to 6 month basis. And often they turn into long-term projects, but they need to actually serve what the client needs and adapt to the current business environment. Many of the ideas McKinsey and other firms like BCG came up with in the 60s and 70s are novel, but they're not useful for most companies because most companies know these ideas and implement them already. So what McKinsey needs to do is continually adapt. What is the new perspective on this? What is a new way to think about solving this problem? What does the cutting edge look like in terms of how a big organization operates in the world? These are the questions that almost everyone in the firm is looking at. And because the organization is organized around small teams, they're able to deploy and invest in different projects across the globe, over here, and in this function or that function. And a lot of them don't turn out to be anything, but all they need is a handful that are actually going to resonate with clients, and then they can roll them out to the rest of the firm. The second thing that enables them to do this is their premium pricing. And because they've built a great culture, they have great people, and they're able to continuously update their ideas, they're able to charge a higher price. That enables them to build an operating model around consultants working on one problem or one client at a time, or less clients, which means they can go deeper and then even build a stronger competitive advantage and moat around them that helps them outcompete all their clients. This is what's led to McKinsey building upon its advantages already as the leader of the strategy consulting industry. They're not only number one in the whole market globally, but they're also growing 10+% a year. All these things lead to McKinsey's virtuous cycle. So they combine great people with a culture that checks out past the BS filter and focus long term, which enables them to continue to attract great people. Now, this has enabled them to succeed for almost 100 years. And will they survive the next 100 years? I don't know what I would bet on. I think there are some huge risks that companies like McKinsey and other consulting firms are facing. One is that up or out is no longer up or out. It's up or maybe moved to different functions within the firm. And as the firm's grown and got more complex, it's become important for more people to stay and people to move into staff functions. But does this harm the intellectual agility and the idea-making processes of the company? I don't know. Time will tell. The second thing is that they have built their firm around the foundation of the industrial economy that emerged in the 1950s to the 1990s. We're currently undergoing a massive transformation towards more of a technology-centered industry and technology-centered capitalism. Can McKinsey stay relevant and stay at the center of the kinds of ideas and helping and working with the type of firms that are going to lead in the future? I don't know, but this is a big risk. They noticeably have been investing in their McKinsey Solutions arm for many years, trying to figure out how to connect technology with a consulting solution in a way that enables them to build their own technology firm as well and stay relevant. Will they be able to do it? I don't know. This is definitely a big risk as well. And the final risk is that the culture doesn't pass the BS filter anymore. When you join the firm, you're shown a video of Marvin talking about how he turned down different clients. One example was Howard Hughes, I think he turned down, and another was the US government. But the point was you did turn down clients if they didn't align with your values. I'm not sure that those values are still adhered to fully. We see a lot of scandals that McKinsey's involved in. Part of this is because they're so deeply entwined in capitalism all over the world that these things are going to be inevitable. But are they going to be able to continue to attract great people if what they're saying in their culture doesn't align or pass through that BS filter? This is probably the biggest risk that McKinsey will face. Thank you for listening to this video. If you like this kind of content about the consulting industry and consulting skills and other ideas emerging from my experience in this industry, follow the subscribe button. Let me know what you like, what you want to hear. If you want to learn the skills of strategy consulting without working in the industry, you can check out free lessons on StrategyU.co or check out the course Think Like a Strategy Consultant.